So last night I saw Paul Thomas Anderson's Inherent Vice. I got to see it because I live in LA, so we get to do awesome things. So I got to see it in 70 millimeter at the Cinerama Dome, and I gotta say, the one problem with going to movies by yourself, especially in LA, I kind of had this problem in San Francisco, but it's worse in LA, is everybody who goes to see movies, especially this kind of movie, is like a cinephile, and then they chat about movies. And this time of year, it's terrible because they're chatting about all the awards things, and why isn't that one not nominated? And this one's definitely nominated for this amount, and they're always wrong. They're always wrong about everything. So these people behind me, this has nothing to do with Inherent Vice, but I just feel I need to share. These people behind me were chatting about the Golden Globes, and they were wrong about, everything that was nominated, and I was just like, I'm going to kill you. And then, at one point, they said, they were talking about Whiplash and how it wasn't nominated, or how the one guy thought it was nominated for, everything, and the other guy was like, no. And then they were, basically, they decided it didn't get nominated for anything except J.K. Simmons because it was the director's first film, and I was like, first of all, that's already wrong. You're already wrong. It's his second film. It's his first, major film, but it's his second film. Dude, this is your favorite film of the year, and you haven't looked the director up enough to know that he had another film that you should probably try to find? And then, they were like, yeah, but, Selma, that was that lady's, they didn't even know her name, that lady's first film, and I was like, oh my god, Ava DuVernay has 2 films. She has 2 other films. And one of them got nominated for a ton of Independent Spirit Awards. Jesus. So, but instead of trying to educate these fools, I just read my book. Because it's best not to engage. Anyways, that was the prelude. I think that's why I shared this. That was the prelude to going into this movie. And the trailers before the movie were not that great. I can't remember what they were, but all the movies looked like crap. So, a lot of crap movies coming out, guys. So this had it's Paul Thomas Anderson's least well received film. I think it might even have a lower rating than Hard 8, which is strange. Hard 8, this is similar to Hard 8 in that it's a straight up crime sort of film, but it's closer to his later films because it's also a sprawling ensemble, which is what we've come to know and love from Paul Thomas Anderson. And this time his wife's in it for a little bit, Maya Rudolph. That made my day. I also realized just now when I was making coffee, sorry, the cat is trying to jump on the screen, I don't know. When I was making coffee, I realized that Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon were in Walk the Line together, and that's the one she won her Oscar for, and so it was like a reunion. I hadn't realized that till just now. The cat is literally right, if you can't see where my hand is, that's where the cat's head is right now. Just so you guys can picture that. I was trying to sit in the sun because it's like a sunshine noir, or at least if you talk to the BAM Cinematheque in Brooklyn, it's a sunshine noir. But the, sun right now is totally making my face look crazy. I'm kind of regretting this, and I'm also sort of going blind. So I'm almost regretting this setup right now. I haven't even talked about the movie, which I think the strangeness of this review kind of goes with the strangeness of the film. Now, Josh Brolin had this great quote about the movie. Let's see. You have to let go of all preconceived, intelligent ideas and allow it to take you on its ride. And I completely agree. Except that I didn't find it that confusing. And maybe it's because I've read so much Chandler and Hammett. And let me tell you guys, read The Big Sleep. It's more confusing, the book, than the movie. Read freaking Red Harvest, and you're like, what is happening? It makes me really want to read this novel, because I've actually never read any Pynchon before, and I didn't realize this was sort of a newish novel, but, so it's neo-noir, but as a connoisseur of crime fiction, which, in a second, I'll show you all of my crime fiction books, I have a lot, I feel like I got a little more out of it than people who aren't as well versed in crime fiction, because when you read specifically the Chandlers and the Hammets, but mostly the Chandlers, when you read them, you get very used to having tons and tons of threads that don't all make sense, and then it finishes at the end, and you're like, okay, yeah, I see how that all tied together, I guess. You know, so you get used to that. You can get used to just going with it. And so with a movie like this, you just go with it. And the performances, like Joaquin Phoenix is so funny. It's mostly on his face. His reactions to think what's going on is really some of the best stuff he's doing. And Josh Brolin is just hilarious. And I also really liked, there's a minor character named Jade, who I don't think I've seen this actress in anything. Hong Chow is her name. She doesn't even have a link on her Wikipedia page. She was hilarious. Hilarious. Like, please be in more movies. And this movie had everybody in it too, which is just great. And it's I love movies about. I've recently been reading a lot of nonfiction LA crime books. So I've learned a lot about the early, like the first half of. I read one book that was from the 20s and 30s, crime in LA, and then one that was the 30s and 40s. So I learned a lot about the history of LA. I have several more books that I'm going to read this coming year. I'm becoming an expert on the history of early Los Angeles. And it's interesting how they threw in little bits of that and little bits of how LA, as LA gentrifies and as LA grows, it kicks basically non-white residents out of places that they've lived for a long time in order to build shitty, soulless housing developments for white people. And that is one of the main histories of this beautiful city. And they touch on that in a way that, like, is almost a little throwaway, but it totally worked because it makes you want to go, I need to look that up. And I really appreciate Paul Thomas Anderson's love of the Valley and the parts of LA that people don't really think about when they think of LA. Like, most of his movies take place in the San Fernando Valley, which is where I live, and where my dad grew up. And parts of this mostly took place on the beach, obviously. But then they went to other places, like Lancaster, which is where my mom grew up. And it showed you parts of LA that you're just not used to. And so that was equally fun. And so the movie's 2.5 hours. And I didn't feel like I was sitting there watching 2.5 hours. It's such an epically sweeping film with this and that and this and that, and you go all over the place, and you go along on the ride almost completely with Joaquin Phoenix, and he's such an accomplished, charming actor that, unless you don't like his shtick, which, you know, maybe some people don't, but once you've jumped on with Joaquin and you're just going through this crazy ass ride, you just go with it, and it is unbelievably fun. And then it ends and you're like, wait, what? And also, the ending is such an allusion to The Big Sleep. Like, it is almost framed exactly the same as the end of The Big Sleep. Like, but instead of Bogart and Bacall, it was Joaquin Phoenix and Catherine Waterston, and I was like, I see what you did there. You know, and I read this interview once with, or maybe it was, I think it was an interview. It was when The Master came out, where Paul Thomas Anderson talked about how he always has TCM on. He's one of those guys who just has it on at all times, and he's always learning from these older films. And in this film in particular, I saw lots of that because it's such a noir film, and he's such an informed director that you can see how much he understands this genre. And I feel like not only did he read, like, Pynchon's novel a ton of times, and Pynchon most likely read a ton of crime fiction, but it feels like Paul Thomas Anderson also has read all of these novels and seen all of these films multiple times and made it really work. But then he also, like, It also had shades of, like, Harper and some of those later, or Marlowe, which is this, like, really not that great adaptation of the Chandler's The Little Sister. Oh my god, my cat is literally standing somewhere he shouldn't. He's gonna fall on this computer. I'm gonna wrap this up before the cat falls off the window and see, he's changing the light. Mr. Rochester! Wait, I was gonna take you guys somewhere, so I'll just show you the cat. Can you see him right there? Oh, here we go. Can you see that? This is what I have to put up with. He's gonna fall, and I'm just gonna let him do it. Just fall, Mr. Rochester, just fall. Look at him. That is a cat. He's standing on an inch of the window right there. He's gonna fall. I'm just gonna let him do it. So, let's see. I think most of my nonfiction crime books are, like, out in my living room. I don't want you guys to see the living room. It's a mess right now. But I do want to show you. I do want to show you this. Look at that. You see that shelf? Isn't that beautiful? That is a bunch of crime fiction. Actually, no. Hold on. There's a traveling video. Should be right here. No. Where did I put? Did I not put it up? Maybe I put it up. Mr. Rochester, do you remember? He doesn't remember. Oh god, now you're seeing me without makeup. Sorry, guys. Where did I put it? Oh god, it's right here. Okay, so these are the books that I read that if you enjoyed this film, I really recommend. So read this one first. It's A Bright and Guilty Place, and it takes place during the 20s and 30s, and sort of builds up the LAPD. And then I recommend LA Noir. It's the 40s and 50s, and they read like sequels, even though they're not, they weren't written to be sequels, and actually LA Noir came out first. And then I was going to recommend In a Lonely Place, the book, because the film is very different than the book. And the film takes place, the detective is in a similar, not the detective, but the cop who's trying to catch the killer guy, is a very similar cop to the Brolin character in this film. He's a beach cop, and I don't know, I just found it really interesting. So that's my very long-winded take on Paul Thomas Anderson's Inherent Vice, one of my favorite films of the year. It's playing in like 4 places in LA right now, so if you're in LA, go see it. It's opening wide on the January 9th, so once it does that, go see it. Just go see it. It's so worth it. You will love it. I promise.